can you tell us about the series?
So, Sneaky Pete is about a con artist, played by Giovanni Ribisi. His actual name is Marius, but he gets out of prison after 3 years, finds out that he's still in a jam that he thought he'd gotten out of. He's not out of it, so he has to hide. So he decides to take on the identity of his cellmate for the past 3 years, who's played by Ethan Embry, by the way, who's awesome. That character, Pete, is estranged from the family, hasn't seen them in 20 years, and he notices there's enough of a resemblance between the two of them, and so he shows up at the farm and says, "Hey, it's me, Pete," and they believe him. But the interesting thing about the show is that Marius is in a bad jam. The bad guy is Bryan Cranston, playing a character of Vince, and he owes him $100,000, or Vince is going to start chopping off his brother's fingers. So, because it's Vince, and it's Bryan Cranston, and he's playing a bad guy, and he's having so much fun. It was a delight to watch. But what he finds out at the farm is this sort of Norman Rockwell-looking family. There's something else going on. They've all got secrets of their own. And so he gets involved in all of that. So we've sort of got two stories running. One, the farm and that family, and by the way, they run a bail bonds business, so there's always bad guys coming in and out, and that can be used in the story, used in the con that Marius is going to run. And then there's the story with Vince and how he's going to get that $100,000 back to him. That's the basic story. That's season 1. There, now you don't have to watch it. No.
So what's it like working in the kind of the Amazon structure? Did you shoot it all at one time and pitch it? Or?
So I'm not the creator of the show. The show is created by Bryan Cranston and David Shore, who did a little show called House. I don't know if anyone watched that. And it stemmed from Cranston at one of his Emmy Award acceptance speeches, talking about how he grew up as a sneaky Pete, and meaning that he kind of cut corners, found the angle on things. Wasn't probably a full-fledged con man, even as a kid, but it was a little shady. And so someone said, "Why don't we do a series? That's a great title." So he developed that with David. They got a pilot commitment from CBS, but they shot it for CBS. CBS said, "No, we'll do another NCIS. We'll do NCIS Massapequa." No, but so they said, so they took it to Amazon. And the big adjustment was in the CBS show, Bryan wasn't in it. So for Amazon, they went, "No, Bryan can play Vince." So that was the big adjustment. And then there was just a difficulty generating stories and whatever, and they asked me to consider coming in. And I brought Michael Dinner, who's our directing producer on Justified, Fred Golan, and Ben Cavell, who I'd worked with as writers on Justified. So we came in, but the thing of it was we really liked the idea of doing a con artist show. It's fun. It can be dark, it can be funny, it can be exciting, it can have a lot of strange humanity to it. But the big thing was the cast, and we'd all worked with Margot before. That had gone very well for us on Justified. She's just an amazing performer. Working with Cranston, Marin Ireland, who's an amazing New York actress, who was on The Divide on Wii last season before. Anyway, great actress. Libe Beret, Shane McRae, Giovanni, and Giovanni was a big reason for us all wanting to do the show.
How did he get involved?
I think it was, they just went to him back when they were doing the CBS version. When Bryan Cranston calls and says, "I'd like you to be in my, show that I'm co-creating," you listen to him. And I think that's, that they got the rest of the cast based on that. It feels better as a streaming show than it might have been as a more of a standalone episode CBS show. But that's been my world, especially Justified and stuff like that. So I like that big serialized story for a season.
Is it going to release all at once?
Yes.
Okay, so binge-worthy then.
Hopefully binge-worthy. That was not really an adjustment, even Justified, because because we had a big story, we would put some kind of, if not a cliffhanger, at least some big question at the end of an episode. That's really important for binge shows. I mean, if you've watched any, they always end up on something, so that when it says the next episode starts in 8 seconds, you let it roll. and you know, and then people stay up all night and lose their jobs, and you know, and the economy collapses. But other than that, so that was one thing that we had to keep in mind always, was have a big hook at the end of every episode. And it was freeing not to have to write commercial outs, you know, act breaks. Those can sometimes be fun because it helps you sort of structure the thing. But you know, we could play with that because sometimes on Justified we'd find, oh, this act is only 4 minutes long, you know, and it can't be that short. So what do? We'd have to fudge around with it.
So if somebody is a fan of Blank, they're gonna love Sneaky Pete.
Blank?
Like what show?
Oh, I thought you said Blink, like Malcolm Gladwell.
Sorry.
And it's like, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Blink. The idea if you make a split decision.
Yeah.
You know, not so much another show. You know, Leverage was kind of a con show. I didn't watch that much of it, but it would be more movies like The Grifters, like The Sting. There was a pretty smart little con movie a few years ago called Criminal with John C. Reilly in it and Maggie Gyllenhaal. Didn't get a huge amount of profile, but it was a smart con movie. That kind of thing more than anything.
Now, where does this actually take place? Like, what part of the country?
It takes place here. It takes place in well, actually, the farm and everything is in Connecticut. We shot it in New York, but and the Vince, the bad guy, runs an illegal card room in Chinatown. So there's a fair amount of play with New York and the boroughs and Connecticut. Present day.
That's kind of interesting, with especially with Bryan Cranston was known for, you know, doing things the New Mexico feel, and then Justified obviously has a more of a southern kind of feel to it. So this is something almost entirely different.
It is. It's very urban, and with some countryside. But the interesting thing in terms of Breaking Bad, one of the things that Cranston has said about this show is that if we get to do the full run, that it's really a show about breaking good. That this is a bad guy. He's a con artist. But he needs to, and he has a yearning to, find his humanity. Because he grew up in that world, and it is very cynical, very jaded. No one is trustworthy, and he has a yearning in that direction. But we don't take him that far that fast.
I imagine in that kind of situation, it's hard to make a character relatable and likable for the audience. How much have you struggled with that?
You know, it's interesting. I think we struggled with it conceptually, but when you watch the show and you see Giovanni, I remember it was my daughter who watched it, and she said, you know, I was nervous whether or not I'd like this guy. And then she said, but he's just so engaging. And you understand that a lot of what he's doing to try and save his brother. And then there's another story going on beyond that becomes clear as the season goes along. So you've got rooting interest for that. But you're worried, is he going to screw over this family? You know, it's Peter Garrity and Margot Martindale and Marin Island. They're great people, you know, and he's going to screw them over? It's like, So we like that sort of balance and that tension.
Now, were you able to shoot in New York, or where did you guys end up?
We shot, the studios were in Brooklyn, and we would a location everywhere from Mount Vernon up to Warwick, New York, not Warwick, Rhode Island, but up near Tuxedo, if anyone knows that, Metro North area. Great farm country. Oh my God, so beautiful. The streets of New York.
It treated you well?
Yeah, you know, it's a challenge. You know, it's a challenge getting around more than anything. You don't want to do a big company move more than once a day, because that can kill you. But everything was, you know, you get used to it. You figure it out.
So, assuming the series is successful, how much of a story do you think you have going forward?
You know, we haven't really discussed that. I think in this new universe, you think 5, 6, maybe 7 years, something like that, 10-episode order. I think we could probably do something like that. Yeah, dream big. I mean, it's, on the other hand, you could, you know, if they said, you know what, 3 years would be great, 4 years, you'd figure that out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Table 2. You were awesome.